Todd Polwine, and I'm a portfolio manager here at HORAN Wealth, and I specialize in working with high net worth clients as well as institutional clients. And joining me this week is Andrea Costa. Andrea is the Vice President of Wealth Strategy and Financial Planning here at HORAN Wealth. Andrea, could you tell us a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. So I was engaged in the private practice of law with the super regional law firm's trust and estates group for quite some time. I focused on high net worth client needs, trust litigation, and international estate planning. And I also served as that firm's business succession team leader. So I don't practice law anymore. I serve as a subject matter expert here at HORAN Wealth, and I also serve as a liaison between HORAN Wealth and the legal and accountancy communities, both locally and nationwide. I like to serve as a consultant to business owners and other clients with complicated estate issues too.
So thank you. So we're here today to talk about wills and trusts. So can you tell me a little bit about what a will is?
Absolutely. So most people know that they need a will. It's an important document in any formal estate plan. So without a will, if a person passes away, their estate plan is going to go to their heirs based on state intestacy laws. So it can be said that even if you don't do an estate plan, you do have an estate plan. It's just not something that you have actually thought about and selected. So any formal estate plan is going to include a will and other documents in order to be fitted for you. So a will is a formal legal document that identifies how the assets and prized possessions are going to pass to heirs. It's also going to designate to the probate court who the decedent, that's the person that passed away, prefers to serve as a guardian for any minor children or disabled beneficiaries that they're responsible for while they were living. That's about it for the will.
Okay. Now I understand you usually name an executor in the will. So what's the role of that person?
Good point. I often field questions about executors. An executor is a person that's designated in the terms of the will, and that person's responsible for gathering information about the decedent. And that person's also responsible for shepherding the decedent's assets through the probate court process. Depending on the state, an executor might be called other things too. So they could be called an administrator. They could also be called a personal representative. It all means the same thing, basically. But you do need to keep in mind that an executor doesn't have any power or authority over the estate until the probate court grants them that power and authority. Okay. So what would happen is the probate court is going to review the will. It's going to approve and swear in the executor, and then the court is going to issue a document showing that the executor has the power to do what they need to do. And that can be called letters testamentary or a letter of authority. There are other names too. It's all different state to state. And it's also important to note that preparing a will is not going to prevent a decedent's assets from going through the probate process. The will guides the assets through the process. Yep. So this means that any assets that are subject to a transfer on death designation or any other beneficiary designation, those are not going to flow through the will. So it's very important because over time, sometimes people will forget the terms of their will versus their beneficiary designations, and things get a little askew. And remember too that a will only becomes active after a person's death. So the executor is only going to have authority after that person passes away and the probate court grants it.
Okay. So most everyone would benefit from a will, clearly. So then what is a trust? What role does that serve?
Sure. A trust is an arrangement whereby that person's called a trustee, they're going to hold property as the legal owner for the good of one or more beneficiaries. So assets that are directed to a trust while someone's living, those aren't going to be subject to the probate administration process at death. A significant limitation of a will for families with young children is that if you have a will, those assets are probably going to go into a guardianship for your minor children until they're at the age of majority. And so that means that the probate court is involved that whole time. It also means that the children are going to receive the entire inheritance at age 18. So I don't know about you, but at 18, I probably wasn't ready for that. I probably wasn't as responsible as I am now. Right. And I think a lot of parents know that too. So most parents don't like this result. The reasoning skills of an 18-year-old are just not the same as a full-fledged adult. And studies show that the part of your brain that is responsible for reasoning is not fully developed until you're actually 28.
Okay.
So parents don't love that result. We see a lot of trips to Vegas, boats, motorcycles, that kind of stuff when the child inherits at 18. So that's something that we try to plan to avoid.
Absolutely. So trusts are, clearly more complex than wills. So who would need a trust?
Well, that's a tricky question, Todd.
Yeah.
Trusts are an important feature for an estate plan for a wide variety of families for a wide variety of different reasons. There's also a lot of different types of trusts. For the purposes of our discussion, I think I'm going to focus on a revocable trust, which is the most simple type of trust, but there's still a lot of things that you can customize in there.
Yeah.
So some clients might choose to establish a trust to take care of that I don't want my 18-year-old to inherit at 18 type of problem.
Yeah.
And you can do that with a trust. And then other clients might establish a trust for privacy purposes. So something to keep in mind is that if an asset goes through probate, it's now a public record. And in many places, including in Hamilton County, Ohio, where we're sitting right now,
Yep.
That's scanned and put on the internet. So that means that, people that might take advantage of a beneficiary have access to that information. It also means for a business owner that a public appraisal of the company is just out there.
Yeah.
So the surviving family, the surviving business partners, that puts them in a really bad spot.
Sure.
So those are some of the reasons someone might do a trust. Beyond that, there are also some serious tax concerns that some clients have, and a revocable trust can help you get there. There are more complicated trusts that might, really optimize the situation for other clients that have different levels of wealth.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Now, are there individuals who could use a trust but don't necessarily really need to have one?
Another tricky question.
I'm full of them today.
I know. So there are many varieties of trusts that might be appropriate for a particular person's financial life and family life. Okay. And trusts are not necessary, but they do optimize things for a lot of families. So there are some remarkably simple trusts that would benefit most families. So for example, if you have young children or young adults, a simple trust can take care of a lot of family issues that might happen if you pass away. One thing to note is that it's absolutely essential that you speak to someone that's an estate planning attorney that spends almost all of their time in this area, because they're going to know how to guide you through that decision. And, in fact, a lot of my time is spent cultivating relationships with those sorts of folks and making sure that our clients are connected to them appropriately. So that's very important. The proper advisors around you are going to help you solidify your legacy intentions and determine the kind of trust strategies that might be right.
So Andrea, thank you for helping us understand the distinction between wills and trusts today. And you can find out more information about this and other relevant wealth information on our website, which is horanwealth.com/insights. Thank you.